Meetings being live stream. All right, so now we're live stream. Welcome everyone. Casey, do I have an agenda or are we just going through it?
No, you do have an agenda. It's
now we're live stream.
we just need to do the approval of the minutes.
All right. All right, I think we just muted everyone. So approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? All right, all in favor of passing the minutes, please give me a thumbs up. All opposed, please give me a thumbs up or say nay. All right, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Just, Casey, I don't have the agenda in front of me. I know my stuff like I normally do. I apologize.
No,
Does
it's okay.
Wayne get to do an update?
It's all we have today is Wayne is here to do our update, and then Director Mike Tan from Transit's here to just kind of fill us in on what's going on in his neck of the woods. And then I know at our last meeting, a lot of folks in this group were interested in transit. And I don't know if everybody got it or not. I did send out the application for folks to apply to that transit board. And then just as an update to our conversation yesterday or last month, the mayor and Councilmember Ballard will be meeting with staff today to discuss where they are at on updating some of our liquor regulations. So it looks like next month we should be able to have an update for you on that information that we discussed last month. So we'll turn it over to Wayne, and then when Wayne's done, we can open it up to Director Tan.
Perfect.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I trust you can hear me okay. Great to see you, Mayor. Always good to see you. Got just a few minor updates here. Want to start off by first saying or drawing some attention to an initiative that really the President Biden signed into effect back in December, an executive order around basically bringing about equity in procurement in federal contracting. And so right now across the federal government, there's an objective that at least 15% of our annual spend would be done with businesses that are in this category of small disadvantaged business or women-owned small businesses. So there's really a focused effort. And I bring this issue up because we don't have very many companies in our area that are actually participating in federal contracting. In the state of Kansas alone, annually, we procure probably to the tune of $1.5 billion in terms of, that's everything from military equipment to office supplies across the federal government. And while that number itself is pretty large for small business, it's not as significant. I think normally we're around, say, $500 million that goes to small business, but certainly a lot of opportunity. And just want to raise awareness of that. This executive order that the president did back in December. And then most recently, there was also something that was done to expand opportunities for women-owned small business, where across the federal government, the target is 5% of federal contracts would be done with women-owned small business. And so that was kind of, there were industries that weren't necessarily being targeted for these opportunities. And so now that has been expanded. And so the combination of the industries that have been expanded for women-owned small businesses and this federal target of 5%, in addition to the small disadvantage target going up to 15%, it's estimated that that may result in $100 billion in terms of opportunity nationally, for businesses in those categories. So federal contracting is a big deal. I want to raise awareness of that for this call and for others who are going to be able to watch it. And so locally, what we're doing is a series of what we're calling Contracting Corner workshops. We've got one coming up April 22nd, and that's going to, the focus of that one will be a program called Encountering Innovation, which is happening out in June, but we'll be, talking more about that program, which is coming up. And then also Sedgwick County on April 29th is going to talk about how to do business with Sedgwick County. We've got some others like the General Services Administration, or GSA, on June 10th is going to talk about how to do business with GSA. So this series of contracting corners is intended to educate business owners on how to pursue and go about, doing business with these entities, not only federal entities, but some of our local government entities as well. And so wanted to raise awareness of those things. And then finally, the first week of May is National Small Business Week. And the mayor graciously accepted to issue a proclamation on May 10th in observance of National Small Business Week. So on that Tuesday, May 10th, I would invite others, from this committee to join me that morning to accept the proclamation from the mayor on May 10th in observance of National Small Business Week. So I'll stop there. All the other programming that we have, our EIDL loans and our normal SBA programming, those things are still kind of ongoing. If there are any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer.
So I would nominate Andrew if he's going to come to be the person in charge of bringing us coffee. Next, further questions?
I have a question. Wayne, you'd mentioned, small businesses for women and that kind of stuff. Is there any small business grants that you can get for for-profit entities that are women owned in that kind of area? I mean, I don't really know of a whole lot of grant ones for for-profits.
Yeah, so in terms of grants, it's really limited in terms of what SBA has.
Okay.
The only grants that have come into play recently, obviously, are some that were associated with COVID relief,
Right.
With those programs. And then there are grants available, but you would have to access these grants through the state. The funding has come from the SBA. And what it is for, though, is for exporters under the STEP program, State Trade Export Expansion Program. And so it's an exporter initiative intended to help businesses to market their services and products abroad.
Okay.
So there aren't any grants, to get started, that sort of thing from the SBA, but there are initiatives that we continue to roll out that are intended to provide assistance. There's a innovation competition grant opportunity that is coming up. I'll be sure to share that with the mayor's group so we can get that out to the team. But it's really pretty limited in terms of the number of grants that SBA provides to start. Like a traditional or lifestyle business.
Correct.
There really aren't grants, for that. It typically grants come into play when it's new technology or something that is really high growth, and the grant is intended to help commercialize the technology.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just want to throw in, we talked about this before, but and maybe as we move forward, we can create some type of portal that has all the different opportunities for folks here in Wichita. But the Propel loan program is supposed to be particularly geared towards women and minority-owned businesses, although anyone can apply. It's up to $20,000. It's not a grant, but it's also like a very low interest rate option for small businesses. And so just want to throw that out there, where we're still looking for more applicants for it. Like, we haven't gotten the amount of applicants I think we need to really put a dent in the funds that we have. So
can you send that out?
Yeah, Casey, can we take a note to send out the information on Propel to the folks in this group?
Absolutely.
Excellent. So thanks, Wayne. Appreciate the update. Let's move into updates on liquor regulations research, which is Casey.
I mentioned that at the beginning, but I'll just go over it again. The mayor and council member Ballard, after our last month's meeting, reached out to staff about our concerns that were brought up when we talked about the tournament, and staff was actively working on kind of doing a study of what the regulations were. And so the mayor and councilmember Ballard are going to get a presentation this afternoon on that information. And then it's my hope that we can facilitate some sort of presentation for next month's meeting to bring you into that conversation and see your ideas or see what else we could still be working on.
Yeah, basically the goal would be to figure out what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, and then make necessary changes so that next time we have this type of opportunities here, folks, not just on this call, but in general, can take better advantage of it. So we'll get back to you guys on how that presentation goes and what limitations are and what the opportunities are. Andrew.
I just want to put a plug in for some things I've heard recently from other operators that are like non-traditional type businesses that might not necessarily easily qualify. And perhaps it would be great to get public input, public meaning like from business operators that might have interest in, adding things like alcohol, because there may be some other like wider changes that could all be swept into one, specifically in relationship to thinking like the ratio of food to non-food. I had a conversation just last week with someone who was planning on making this part of their business. And then I kind of went through, like, well, the way it's currently set up, this is what you're up against. They're just like, oh crap, there's no way I can do this. And so it kind of ruins their idea. It's a good idea. So there was changes made to the city ordinance back in like 2004 or 5. Greg Ferris pushed these things through as his last big thing he did, and it made it easier, but it also made it harder. So like specifically around entertainment, it would be wonderful if we could reclassify that. So like coffee shops, for example, who serve alcohol don't get treated the same as a nightclub in Old Town, which are completely different businesses. And that's my example. We quit selling alcohol because it wasn't worth it. May have been worth it if we were able to do the other things. It just wasn't worth it. So just a thought that I think there's a lot of us that could offer insights as to how they could change. Thank you.
No, and let's continue this conversation. We just had a change proposed when it comes to nightclubs versus entertainment establishments for similar reasons, where folks thought a nightclub was moving into their neighborhood because it was technically classified as a nightclub, but it was really more of a kind of bar entertainment type development. So we just found a way to kind of start breaking those up a little bit more. And so that conversation is a recent one, and we could be looking at ways to better improve that policy since it's fresh in staff's mind. So yeah, let's continue to discuss that, because I agree with you, particularly when it comes to what a like coffee shop that sells some beer is much different than a bar that's primarily selling alcohol. So, all right, further discussion on this one. If not, we're gonna
follow up to your comment. If you have anybody that you think, if we do this next month and have a conversation with city staff on this topic, if there's people that aren't on this board regularly but would like to attend that Zoom next month and engage, I'm happy to send extra invitations if this is a topic that there's specific businesses that like to join into this conversation but can't make it every month. Just shoot me an email of anybody that'd like to join, and I'm happy to send them the Zoom link.
All right, so next going to hand it over to Director Mike Tan to get an update on public transit and do really just see what more we can be doing. So Director Tan, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the time and the opportunity. You're going to hear another presentation after the agenda review, so feel free to fall asleep or go and do some other things. But a lot of the information that I'll just briefly touch on today, you're going to hear again in a couple hours. Wayne, I would like to sort of dovetail a little bit on what you said. We are obviously a large recipient of federal grants. So one of our qualifying, we are always looking for qualified DBAs to bid on services that we need here. And that's something that we struggle with here in Wichita, is people actually being qualified under the federal rules and regulations as a DBE. So I would highly suggest that your members, and you get out there, that even though there is a practice for the city with regards to their practices, the federal regulations are different, and you need to be certified, and you need to have that certification to hand in when you're bidding on services here, whether they're cleaning services or anything that we do, landscaping work, anything that we do. If we have that DBE certificate, that adds a number of points to that selection process. And I think the success rate of local DBEs with that proper certification would go a long, long way. And for a city this size, we should have more. We should be able to get 8 or 9 different local participants for, let's say, a cleaning contract for 5 years to clean our facilities. And we struggle to even get one, because they believe that they've done the local side, that means that qualifies them on the federal side, and it doesn't. There's an actual certification. So we can provide, our purchasing department can provide a ton of information to anybody. So if there's a follow-up to this as to what's required, or anything that you would like to know, Wayne, that you could get out to your members, let us know, because that would affect the airport. That would affect a lot of departments in the city. But there does seem to be a significant number, not a significant number of DBE qualified, federal DBE qualified. And there's going to be more and more money coming out for many, many years for this. So Wayne, anything you need from me, just please let me know. We'd love to see an increase in those applications.
Yeah, I'll take you up on that, Mike. Definitely. And I would echo what you're saying. I remember just before the pandemic, I was working with, this is on the airport, the work that was projected. This is just maybe a little more than a year before the pandemic, but as those goals were being developed, unfortunately, because of the low number of DBEs that were registered with the state, the goals, ended up reflecting those low numbers, that were in the registration database. The numbers would have been higher. The goals would have been higher had there been more DBEs identified in the market research, that were actually certified as a DBE.
Right.
So yeah, love to.
Is.
Disadvantaged business enterprise, which includes businesses that are typically socially disadvantaged, women-owned businesses, minority-owned firms. So that's it. That is a broad category that these firms go into, and it really could represent, projects like what we're talking about with the airport really can represent great opportunities for businesses to win contracts. But you gotta get those certifications, and unfortunately, timing is everything. So Mike, I'll take you up on this, and we can visit offline. So thank you.
Very welcome.
Yep.
I'll sort of start on that. Excuse me. We have a $20 million building project that is going to be going in across the street from the baseball stadium. We hope to break ground at the end of this year. And there's going to be a parking facility there. There's going to be transit facilities there. There's going to be public facilities there, bikes and scooters and all those kinds of things. It should be a very dynamic project for Delano, should free up a lot of parking problems that exist on Douglas, and for the ball field to an extent, but also having that connection to the Q line, having potentially solar power. We're partnering with Evergy to create have that building be entirely powered by solar. We'd like to have a huge number of charging stations for cars on the first floor. We're very close. We're about 500 yards from Kellogg, which is, after August, is going to qualify us for millions of dollars of charging dollars because they want to put charging stations close by points of interest, with the baseball stadium right across the street, Delano right there, right off the highway. There's a number of things that, and again, we'll be working and partnering with Evergy in order to create those synergies. But there's a lot of things in that project where if there's local contractors here that can provide those services, whether it's solar panels or electrical, all of our construction company, that when they win the award, they're under the same rules and regulations. And we're going to set a DBE goal that is going to challenge the city of Wichita's providers of those services to get certified, because there's a lot of money that is going to be available in that project for local entities to participate in when it's being built, and then also after it's built. And it's going to be a 24/7 facility. There's going to be a ton of needs when it comes to that. But even building that building, there's going to be supply needs. There's going to be construction needs. There's going to be manpower needs. And if they're DBE qualified, our contractors are required. That again becomes the same part of the grading process when they're selecting their subs. So as a little bit of it's an impetus to get people to do it. That project right there is going to be it's going to be transformational to the area, and it could be transformational too for small businesses that want to participate in that project. With that, I guess I'll stick on the non-transit, as in ridership type conversation for just a minute. I don't know whether you know or not, but we have the largest electrified bus fleet in the state of Kansas right now, even larger than Kansas City, Kansas, Missouri, that system. We have 11 electric buses that are out in fleet service every day. Those represent two different manufacturers. Complete Coachworks is the one you see on the Q line, and you see a WSU running around. And then we have 4 Proterras, which are state-of-the-art electric buses. And those are all those buses are running in line service. They've been very successful and very well received by the community. We save about 35% over the lifespan of that bus as compared to a diesel bus. The mileage that we've put on those since they came into service a little less than 2 years ago is already, between comparing a diesel bus to an electric bus, is already saved 1.2 million pounds of carbon not being released into the atmosphere. So as electrification becomes more acceptable, and our goal is to never buy another diesel bus again. We have a very young fleet now with those 11 buses in there. So it's going to be a few years before we're even qualified to purchase based upon the years of service. But our belief in the cities is to continue to buy electric anything, whether it's our non-revenue vehicles for our service vehicles to go out, or it's our small paratransit vans. We're going to be submitting grants for a number of electrification projects in our facility, and then also in our fleet. We get 6 miles to the gallon on these V12 paratransit vans that run all over the city of Wichita, picking up the disabled community from point to point pickup and delivery. We will save massive amounts of money, even with the increased cost of electrified vehicle. But when you got a V12 six mile per gallon gasoline vehicle running around, that's a very large expense for us. And those are the things that we're going to continue to apply for grants to continue wean ourselves away from fossil fuels and at least be on the leading edge of what it is that can do. Because our vehicles, when we're done with them at the end of 6 years, they can be turned over to, you see Starkey and Ketch running around town doing their things. We can funnel that equipment to them. And they're certainly not in a position as a private entity to purchase those things. We can, after they're outside their useful life, we can almost give them to them to use. So there's a trickle down effect of what it is that we can do with regards to these technologies. So again, it's a little complicated in the explanation. I didn't mean to get off on that tangent, but as an organization and as a industry, transit is at the forefront of federally funded electrification processes and programs, and we need to take advantage of that at every turn. And that's what our goal is, and I know that's Mayor Whipple's goal as well, is to stay at the forefront of those things. So to get to the nuts and bolts of transit real quick, I've been here, for you, those that don't know, I've been here since mid-2018. And where I came from was an extremely, and I use this term, transit-friendly state. Pennsylvania expends about $586 million a year on public transportation, which is pretty much atypical for East Coast. There's a number of reasons why for that, and that those don't apply to Kansas. But as comparing dollars to dollars, not access to access, the state of Kansas spends $11 million. So you take $586 million and compare that to $11 million, you can see where we stand as far as a state investment. In the city of Wichita, we do not have a dedicated funding source. Most cities have either a sales tax, fuel tax, millage, number of different things that goes towards public transportation. We don't have that. So that again restricts operating. To give you a Transit 101 discussion in a matter of seconds, back in the mid 60s, you had massive private transit companies go out of business. So the federal government was left, how do we solve this problem? They can't charge people $5, they can't make money. So they decided to take over public transportation. And the model that they put together was, we'll pay for your buses, your buildings, to maintain your buildings, and maintain your buses. Your local entity, state and local, pays for how much service you want. You pay for more service, they give you more buses, they give you more buildings. It's a pretty simple, complex thing. But since the 60s, that dynamic has changed so much because of budget constraints, changes in administration, beliefs in what public transit should be and what it shouldn't be, and how it's really not the same in Kansas as it is in New York City, let's say. So there's been a number of things that have affected that. But from a simple approach, the amount of operational money that's available to a transit agency will directly relate and be reflective in how many buses they put on the street and the time between those buses. So for lack of a better descriptive, you get what you pay for. So if you don't pay a lot for operation, you're not going to have a lot of buses, you're not going to have a lot of facilities, and you're not going to have a lot of service. So that's what we struggle with here in Wichita to some degree, is that the operational support is not applicable or not associated to a city that is the size of us, almost 400,000. So, and it's been something decades. This has been since the very, very beginning. So we can't go back and change those things. It's only what can we do to move forward. So as an organization, we got here. The one thing that we lacked was generational ridership. There had been about a 2-generation gap between when transit, everybody had one car in their family to now when people have 3 and 4 cars in their family. And you didn't have Kellogg, you didn't have all these highways that were connecting everything, which to some people is great, but then for other people, it's not so great. I've been in communities, and the mayor has been in communities in Wichita where, like in McAdams Park, when I first got here, we had a kickball tournament. The city had a kickball tournament at McAdams Park, and I started talking to people. It's a beautiful park, but there was very few people that were there. And you start looking around and you realize you put that elevated highway there, you start shutting down roads and access, you lose that. So everybody's 55 feet in the air and doing 55 miles an hour. Nobody really knows what's down there. Where years ago, people drove through that community. There was interaction between socioeconomic levels. And a lot of that with this highway system takes that away. And a lot of cities back east are taking those out because they've eliminated that. So our goal was to first try to figure out how we could get back to some generational ridership. And I was a little surprised when I got here that there was very little connectability with universities and schools. So you didn't have school kids who were riding on public transit buses. You had them riding on cheese buses. And there was, the USD 259 expends, I think they're up to 45 or $50 million a year to transport children on those cheese buses. That's not normal. Usually there's a balance, not 50-50 or anything, but there's usually a component of students, school students, that are using public transportation. In Wichita, that wasn't the case. So you had this fear, you had this consternation, you had this, oh, we don't want our kids riding public buses. That's not what we do. But when I got here, it was, I don't want to say timing is everything, but when you're a C student your whole life, pretty much timing is everything as far as it's going to determine your successes, your intelligence isn't going to. But when I got here, the first Sunday I was here, which was May 6th of 2018, the headline in the Wichita Eagle that day was, graduation rates at new Southeast High are lower than the graduation rates at the old Southeast High, which was located where all those kids lived. So I started reading the article, and they were talking about how early the kids had to get up to catch the bus. How many kids weren't doing that? How long it took them to get home from school, on and on and on. So I sort of took that little problem and I reached out to USD 259 when I actually started the job and said, hey, we've got routes that go right out by where this new school is. I took a ride out there. It's a beautiful school, but they kept the same demographic going to the school that they had before. Well, you move the school out of the neighborhood. Now you got to get all those kids, and most of them are lower income minority students, and they're high school students. They don't have the same things that possibly we grew up with two parents that are there. I mean, if I had to be at the bus stop at 6 o'clock, my mother would have been there at 5 o'clock in the morning, waking me up. Some of these low income kids, they don't have that. So why would we not expect that truancy and attendance would drop? So they were struggling with what it is they had to do. So I met with USD 259. Our buses start at 5 o'clock in the morning, but my goal was to create a deviated fixed route system we were within probably 6 or 7 blocks of that school anyway. So what's 6 or 7 blocks? We just added another 6 or 7 blocks to the system. And because they're on a route and they're on a time, we could pick the children up later than what they were getting picked up before. So we added about an hour, which between 6 and 7 a.m., that's a big difference for a teenager. And they got on a bus, it's Wi-Fi connected, it's heated, it's air conditioned, it runs, they go to a bus stop, they learn how to drive, they learn how to ride the system, they get dropped off at the same location, and then same thing going back home. They're not driving through constant neighborhood after neighborhood, they're on a route, they follow the route, they get off at the stop, they walk a couple blocks to home, and they're good to go. So that was a huge success story for us from what it is that we did. So to complement that, we grew that the next year. And the next year, we transport now on a monthly basis over 11,000 WSU high school. In most cases, East High is a very big user of the system now. Southeast High is a big system user of the system. North High. A lot of these kids are low income. They may be struggling either at home or struggling at school. They can now stay and they can ride our system at any time. So the buses don't stop. They don't run as frequent at the peak times, at the non-peak times. But even if they stay after school, they can still ride the bus because that same pass or their ID gets them to go to school. So we went from 0 to 11,000 trips a month on low-income high school students to ride public transit. And those same students, and including elementary and middle in the summertime, ride the system for free with just their school ID. So they can get to jobs, they can get to entertainment, they can get to parks, they can get to the library. The library runs a number of free programs during the summertime. We even allow, if a parent wants to ride, they can ride for free. In the summertime, we're trying to get people the bus isn't a scary thing. Ride it, get on it. It may be electric, it may not be electric, but you can figure it out. It's a pretty simple system, but we just have to get people educated. So that was a key success story for us to get these high school students on the buses and using it for multiple different reasons, not just to and from school, but it could be to and from work or to or from their grandparents' house. Instead of going home to an empty house, maybe they go to their grandparents' house and they have an adult there to help them with their homework before their mom and dad get home from work. So that was a success story. The other one we just started we started it in 19, but it actually flourished. Well, I shouldn't say flourished because the pandemic hit, but our agreement with WSU. There was no standing agreement with WSU. We now have, again, over 11,000 WSU trips every single month. And over 56% of those trips are from either origins or destinations off campus, which means you have people that are living in Wichita and then using the bus to get to school, and it costs them nothing. WSU's paying for it, but it's free to them. So we have a number of success stories there. I got a call, this goes back maybe a year and a half ago, from a father, and they live in Mays. And their daughter goes to WSU, and they could not afford for her to stay in the dorm. So their only choice was either she not go to school, not go to college, or they start borrowing money so that we started the system. He would take her at the end in the morning and take her down to one of our bus shelters down at New Market Square, the one by Target, and drop her off. They knew exactly with our mobile app, you can see exactly where the bus is. They knew the time. He would drop her there off at the shelter at Target. She would jump on that bus, take it to our downtown center, get on Route 21, took her right to WSU. She went to school all day. She did the things she needed to do, and the same thing in reverse. And he just called to say she probably wouldn't be in college if it wasn't for that service. Those are the kind of success stories most people don't hear about because everybody's too busy doing their normal thing. So there's that side of the story and that's a continually growing aspect inside of our business. Again, we're hoping that as they graduate from college, they decide that they want to either buy a home that's on a transit route, or maybe they want to live downtown and they don't want a car. They continue to use the system because they can. And how do we improve that? How do we improve that system? The other thing that we've done is which the mayor was very, very much involved in, the Veterans Ride Free program. Again, the VA was extremely concerned about access for certain veterans because of lack of transportation. That could be to work, that could be to medical appointments, that could be to the store, or that could be to the VA for treatment. So after a number of conversations, we came up with a plan of 4 qualifying programs that they have there, and then providing free transportation with the help of the United Way. They contributed $10,000 for a 2-year pilot program last year, and then this year they provided $20,000 for that. We came up with that because we really didn't know how many people were going to use it. And there's always this question, especially here in Wichita, is are people, and just because you build it doesn't mean they will come on transit, because roads are so easy, parking is so cheap, and everybody's got a car. We are now up to 6,500 trips a month of veterans that are using that. And that's just 4 programs. Now, believe me, we're taking a huge loss, because when you take that number times what would be $1.75 if they were using the system before, it's the numbers don't add up. But it just goes to show you, in United Way and the VA are working on success stories now, and we have a few of them in our PowerPoint presentation for today. But there's people that wouldn't have been able to get to the doctor, or weren't going to the doctor for things that they had. They couldn't hold jobs because they couldn't get there and they didn't have cars. They don't need to worry about that anymore. So for that kind of usage, the whole adage is, the belief before I got here was people wouldn't use it. They'll use it, and they'll use it more if it's more frequent, or if it runs later at night and provides those types of things. But that's just a real small piece of what it is that we're trying to do is, and again, we're trying to make it easier for people to use the bus now. We have mobile ticketing. So if someone has a smartphone, they can buy product, download product, have it on their smartphone, and use it all they have to do is just like you do at Starbucks, same thing. Get on the bus, you beep it, you're ready to go. We're working on we'll be rolling out probably in the next, 3 or 4 months, depending upon with this chip shortage, is a smart card. Because not everybody has a smartphone. So with the smart card, you'll be able to load it at a machine, load it online, however you want to do it, put money there, and then they'll be able to use that. So grandparents can do that. They can load that on their child's card not for WSU, but for whatever it is they may want to use it for. If somebody has a job, they can preload it. Employers will be able to preload money on so that they can use it on transit and transit only. So we're reaching out to a number of different things when it comes to that. So on the job side,
Mike, let's give the last. We got about 15 minutes total. Let's give see if there's any input. This is, like I said, community of small business owners. I first, one thing you said early on, and it resonates because we had this topic at a conference at the National League of Cities in DC about charging stations, where gas stations are pretty much sitting on prime real estate. Once we transition more into electric, that real estate will likely go. It's more of a retail space because electric plugs or charging stations, frankly, are going to be in areas that people want to spend money and utilize commerce while they wait the half an hour to an hour to charge their vehicle. When it comes to, I guess, utilizing more charge stations in Wichita, is your team and the staff you're working with, are they focused on looking at this as a opportunity to put these in areas that have small businesses and commerce, or is it looking at putting them in areas that already have gas stations? What's the, I guess, philosophy there?
Our goal would be to put charging stations at facilities that we have here that people would use to improve the business community, like in Delano. If people know that they can come to our facility and go to the Monarch for dinner and have their car charged in, that's going to be an advantage to do that. If somebody works in the downtown, say they work at Cargill's garage has no charging stations in it, but if they park at our garage, they'll be able to park their car, plug it in during the day, come to work on our bus, we have plenty of buses that would leave that system that would go right by Cargill's front door. But again, give people different reasons to do those things. But our goal is to tie micromobility, electrification, and then creating transit opportunities for people that use that. Again, if somebody's got to charge their Tesla, let's say, and they're from Kansas City and they're going to Oklahoma City, they want to stop someplace. They want to say, maybe they want to go to a play. Maybe they want to go to a ball game. Well, hey, I can pull my car in here and charge it and go to the ball game. I come back, my car's fully charged. Those are the kind of things that we're looking to do. And then again, that same thing, somebody in the morning says, I can park at this location, plug my car in and go to work all day. And then again, walk to lunch, do the things they want to do, and then come back and their car's all ready to go from that standpoint. So that's sort of what we're targeting and hoping to do. And then using what the feds are saying with regards to where they want these stations is to maximize them. We have a huge parking lot out in front of our Waterman facility. There's plenty of places for charging stations there. Do the same thing. If you're going to an Intrust Arena event, pull your car in here, charge, walk over to Intrust Arena. It's going to be getting people to do it.
So also, if folks in this group wanted to, or in this community even wanted to reach out and talk about maybe opportunities for employees to get a discount. If you had a bunch of employees who have to utilize public transit to get to and from work, and there's an opportunity for maybe a discounted price coming from the employer or those type of programs, would they reach out to you directly, or who would be the one to reach out?
Please, Casey, if you would send my email out to everybody, Wayne, if you can facilitate that as well too. Where I came from, we had a number of programs with employers, large and small. One of the largest employers back where I came from was a hospital, and they had 3,000 or 4,000 employees. Not all of them are doctors and nurses. A lot of them are people that are cleaning and working, and they're just a little bit over minimum wage. But one of the problems that they struggled with was attendance. Cars break down, they can't afford to fix them. We actually made it so all employees just got on the bus and they showed their ID from the hospital. Our fare boxes are smart. We can make them. That's what WSU. Just all they do is they show their ID. They get on. That USD 259 show. We can take any employer and do that same thing, and then send an invoice to the employer at the end of the month for whatever the negotiated rate is. Let's say it's $1. For the hospital, it was $1. So we would send them an invoice every month that would say 500 of your employees use the system. Here's the proof. This is what they did, because again, that's a key spot on the fare box, and they were more than happy. Their attendance related terminations or resignations reduced by 35% because people were afforded the ability. They took that excuse or problem away and said, you can ride the bus. Now, we ran a 24/7 system, but these are the kind of programs that can move us to the second and third. We don't need to run 24/7. If we run till 12:30 at night on certain routes for certain employees, then we can accomplish the goals that we're trying to do. It's not a be all and an end all. The mayor and I have had conversations about how do we move towards that. But small businesses need employees. They usually need them at off-hour times, let's say. And this creates the method for them, if the system is there, in order for them to not have to worry about that car. All they have to do is worry about what time the bus picks them up, when the bus drops them off. And then we can start taking the system and moving it to destinations that are closer to those clusters of businesses, which is what we want to do. We've done it with the school systems and the university systems. We now want to do it with employers. You can't be door to door to door to door, but you can come up with areas where there's maybe 4 or 5 employers that are right there. So then you have the rally point to and the rally point from, and you're taking them to within a couple blocks of their home, and they walk home and they're getting home within a reasonable amount of time. It can't be hours. It can't take you 2 hours to drive from one side of the city to the next. So there has to be a comparable increase in service, which again takes that operational support. But as far as the actual making it easy for people to use the bus, with what we have and the technology that we have, we can make it almost an afterthought as to how to do it and and the big thing is to get on one bus, stay on that bus all the way to where you're going. Getting off and transferring gets to be complicated, especially second and third shift type stuff. So these are all initiatives we're working on now and hoping that we can come up with a funding model and an operational model that will take advantage of all of those keys.
So are there other questions from folks? Amber?
Yeah. So a couple of the, so we partner with the transit. We're very grateful for that. So I do have a question about your advisory panel. Why do you have to live in Sedgwick County?
You know, I don't really know. Those bylaws are put together for certain reasons, I guess. But I really don't know. That's a city advisory board, so those bylaws would have been put together with the city. But it's more about where you work or the clientele that you from Transit's perspective.
Sure.
I realize there's certain boards that yes, it is important that they live in Sedgwick County, but Transit is supposed to be, you know, it's more about maybe what your job is and the constituency that you're working with, not necessarily where you live. So we're actually working on a couple different ideas for how to make the transit/transportation board maybe more inclusive and more creating one that has a number of different initiatives going at the same time, connected but different. That may be something I'll bring up to legal to see if we could do that, because again, the decision makers may not necessarily live in Sedgwick County in this case.
You let me know if you decide to move that outside of, and I'm a Butler County resident, but I work 80, you know, I'm in Wichita all the time, obviously. So
I think that's a legitimate point we can make with this board, is that the decision makers that are going to be handling either their people or their employees or whatever it may be, they need to have that input. And that's something that's a very good point, Amber. I will bring that up. Thank you.
I'm just telling you. So if you change that, you let me know, and I'm more than happy to be on your board.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. So, so I do. My last thought for you or question, and it doesn't have to be an answer, you know, is maybe the fact that, you know, maybe some of it is like surveying small businesses or surveying these companies to know, because I mean, I work with lots of companies that I can't get employees to, but they're willing to do something for the transit system. I mean, I have a big company out in Augusta that is getting ready to expand and hire, you know, 300 employees over the next 3 years, but they can't get anybody to them. BG is getting ready to move into Derby with 400, with adding this year, I believe they're adding 40 jobs, but again, nobody can get there. So I know that these companies are, you know, trying to solve their own transit problem with with the labor shortage and everything. So I don't know how to help with that, but you know, if you came up with something that came out from Wayne or from, you know, hey, you know, would your company help or would your company benefit from this? I bet you we could get more just right outside of Sedgwick County as well, that because that's where companies are. They're just outside of the transit reach. So anyway, that's my only suggestion.
Amber, sometimes in a lot of cities, there's actually the SBA will create a transportation committee, and what it does is it allows employers to communicate with somebody at the SBA, express what their problems are, and then the SBA is the conduit of the communication, whether transit comes out or transportation comes out and talks with that group. But you have, what you end up with is, and we struggle with that here a little bit in Wichita, is people at your levels that have knowledge of the system. Because again, there's that whole disconnect of generational. People have been driving cars. Everybody knows how to drive to a destination, but they don't know how to use public transportation.
Sure.
We have training, we have documentation, we have, and again, we're willing to be flexible and to move our buses where people are. That's what we do. That's what we're supposed to do. Where they live or where they work, that's what we're supposed to do. So if there's a couple people in your group that would be interested in sort of getting a Transit 101 training, how it works, where it works, why it is the way it is, how we can change it, then I think we can start, legitimate conversations with employers as to what we can provide either now or in the future.
Okay, yeah. So again, I'm here to help. I just
Good.
can't help you on your board.
Not yet.
Are there further questions or discussion from the board?
Just a quick interjection. I'm sure this is something that Mike hears a lot about, but I have had some customers complained about the queue line being shortened. And, comments that, well, we always, that they had gotten used to kind of like that service and using it to come downtown. And as a downtown business owner, that's obviously something I'm really interested in, is getting people transported downtown. So, and making it easy and cheap and accessible. So that's just one thing I wanted to kind of interject, is that has been something I have been hearing from various customers.
Yeah, you're 100% correct, Brooke. There's a couple reasons for that. Some are long-term that have to be solved long-term, and others are short-term. But right now, that is a totally unfunded part of the system. So there's no fares on it. So that all the operational costs of that come out of our operational budget. So there's no specific line item in the city budget that goes to the queue line. There's no state funding for it. There's no fare funding for it. So that's a huge deficit when you have a system that, for the people that really, really need it, they don't have the system they want. So creating a downtown circulator that, again, has no local component anymore, doesn't have any local support from dollars and cents. It's free to everybody that uses it. It doesn't run at traditional times, so it really can't be for somebody that works in those jobs. It runs very short. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is that we're just unable to hire enough drivers at this point in time. We need 63, and the mayor's fully aware of this, and he's working very hard. And we're not the only city department that is in that situation. But our system right now, as it's designed, needs 63 fixed route operators to perform it efficiently, so that people can work the number of hours they're supposed to work, have their days off. We currently have 48. Our drivers now are operating at about a 20-hour per week overtime rate. That is just going to continue to stress the system. So because the queue line is, again, unsubsidized, it's not part of the regular system. That is the only thing that we can really reduce in size in order to try to make sure we can cover it with the drivers that we have. So it's a funding / availability side on that. Brooke, there's nothing we would like better than be able to expand that. I would love that to be a full operational day system, because then you get people that are using it. We build that new facility. I want people to use that queue line to go to work and to go home, and to use it to park there and to go up to. We got to figure out how to get there, and funding is going to be the key. And how do we get to that point? So,
well, one thing I would like to say, which to people on this particular committee, I probably in some ways sound like a broken record, but because I've brought this up a few times before, but in Old Town, we do pay parking fees, and they are a lot. So their monthly parking fees. And so I don't know where that money goes, but it seems to me that some of it should be diverted to that sort of service.
Yeah,
you
it
know?
doesn't go to train. It doesn't go.
I know. Yeah, I know it does.
Yeah.
I've been told it goes to street cleaning, which I never see happen. So,
But that is a parking in a lot of cities is a way to fund or to help fund particular interests in transit, because the belief is if you're going to drive as compared to using transit, you're going to pay more to park, and therefore that part will go to pay for you want the convenience of that. So that is a model, Brooke, that I can tell you that it is used in a lot of cities to help finance what would be non-traditional circulator type service. Is if you choose not to use it and it is good enough to use, then you're going to pay more to park, or you're going to pay to park. So
sure, I mean, anything to help with the parking problem in Old Town, from my perspective, would be huge. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a number of problems that we have, especially in the Old Town area, that transit could help with, and parking could help with, both of them. So I think and again, we're combining transit and parking in the same department. As I mentioned to Amber, this whole thing of the transportation board, they can start looking at those types of issues. So maybe Brooke, you could be on that board too, and we could have that discussion about how we use parking, how we use subsidies from businesses, and then how do we design a system that runs all the time that we need it in the state in Wichita. So great conversation from both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're about a minute till 10 o'clock. Is there anyone else who wanted to jump in and ask anything of Mr. Tan? All right, well, thank you, Mr. Tan. We will
Thank you, Mayor.
Be in touch with what more we could be doing, but we appreciate all the work you are doing.
Thank you very much.
But with that, just open up. Is there any other comments at this time? All right, if not, just want to thank everyone for being on, and we'll stay on time today. So if there's no other comments, now just make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Bell, but I think also by the other folks as well. So all in favor of adjournment, please say aye or give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. The ayes do have it. All right, thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next time. And as always, feel free to communicate between meetings if there's anything we need to get to. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.